Thanks very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. I rise as a senator for Queensland who has seen our communities, our farmland and our environment devastated by coal seam gas. I'm deeply concerned that this industry is on the verge of an enormous expansion in other states right across the nation. That's why earlier this month I travelled to Western Victoria to talk to locals about the threats of this dangerous industry. Today I'd like to pay tribute to the courageous communities of Western Victoria who have already begun to resist. In my home state of Queensland, the big coal seam gas companies got in early and they swamped farmers and communities despite their best efforts to protect their land, their water, the climate and their communities from dangerous coal seam gas. It's truly devastating to see areas of southwest Queensland from the air where the landscape resembles Jarlsberg cheese, pockmarked with gas wells as far as the eye can see. It's even more heartbreaking to hear the stories of farmers who've had their lives turned completely upside down by the onslaught of the big gas companies. The locals from across the Darling Downs at Dalby, Chinchilla and Tara, from the Scenic Rim at Boona, Kerry, Croftby and Rathdowney, and as far west as Roma and Emerald, have fought long and hard to protect their land, their water and their local environment from coal seam gas companies. In spite of their efforts, over 8,000 coal seam gas wells have been drilled in Queensland and approval has been given for up to 30,000 gas wells. Governments, both Labor and Liberal, under Premiers Beattie, Bligh and Newman, have never refused an application for coal seam gas. Those communities are carrying on their heroic efforts and they are now sounding a warning to their friends in New South Wales, in Victoria, in South Australia, in the Northern Territory and in Western Australia. The communities of Western Victoria and Gippsland are facing off against a very powerful adversary, the unconventional gas fracking industry. They're responding with an inspiring display of grassroots participatory democracy, and their momentum is building. At last count, 43 communities across Victoria, including 11 in Western Victoria, have declared themselves gas field free. In total, there are 70 communities across the state at some stage in that process of making those declarations. These communities deserve better than the weasel words that they've been getting from the Liberal government in Victoria and the Labor opposition. The Liberal Napthine government has placed a temporary moratorium on fracking, which is due to expire in July next year. They're refusing to tell Victorians what they will do after that, if of course they retain office after the election. The Labor opposition are refusing to give a commitment either way. They're handballing the issue to some future parliamentary inquiry. Methinks both parties are trying to get this off the election agenda. Only the Greens are taking a clear policy to the coming state Victorian election. We would ban all fracking and unconventional gas. No weasel words, no deception. Our farmland, our water, our climate, our sustainable industries and our communities deserve that. In Western Victoria and the Otway Basin, they've got something really special. It's a wonderful fertile area, there's good rainfall in many areas, and the capacity to be a powerhouse for sustainably producing food and fibre for the country and the world. It was a pleasure to see this part of the world a few weeks ago with my colleague Senator Richard Di Natale and our candidate for the Western region for the Greens, Lloyd Davies. Lloyd would work with local communities rather than against their interests and would work to avoid some of the mistakes that Queensland has sadly made in rolling out the red carpet to the gas fracking industry. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible work that many of the community groups have been doing in that Western Victorian region. Gasfield Free Portland deserve congratulations. Glenelg Shire Council, which covers that area, have unanimously supported an unconventional gas field free zone. Frack Free Geelong, where along with successful community declarations, the Council of Greater Geelong has voted to reject onshore gas and fracking and for a permanent ban. Gasfield Free Torquay, who've just formed and are doing a magnificent job at protecting the stunning coastal regions of Torquay and Anglesea. It's unbelievable to me that anyone would think of ruining these stunning places, but they're subject to a gas exploration lease. There are too many to list, but frack-free Moriac also deserve a special mention. It was a real honour to meet many of the community members in the dozens of townships that we visited who have banded together and have had these conversations in their community and undertaken surveys. And many have recorded between 97 and 99% support for gas field-free communities. We travelled to Birregurra, to Colac, to Camperdown, to Warrnambool, to Portland, to Drumborg, to Hamilton and to Geelong. Victorian communities in the Western region who want to be gas field free include many of those areas, but also some additional ones: Dartmoor, Drumborg, as we visited, Lyons, Hotspur, Freshwater Creek, Mauriac, Boona, Bamborough, and Geelong area rural communities, including Deans Marsh, where Senator Richard Di Natale hails from, Mount Mauriac and Paraparap. On that recent trip, the Greens announced our bill, which I will soon be reintroducing into this place after 2 earlier attempts which sadly received no support from the other parties in this place. And our new bill will give all landholders the right to say no to unconventional gas, and it will include a ban on fracking for unconventional gas. I'm calling on all parties in this place to support that bill, and I'm calling on all parties in Victoria to respect the grassroots, democratic, community-led declarations instead of trying to weasel their way out of unconventional gas with either empty commitments or silence. I'm calling on Victorians to heed Queenslanders' warning and to back our call for a ban on fracking and all unconventional gas exploration and production. We have renewable alternatives to gas. Clean, green, renewable energy that doesn't risk farmland, it doesn't risk groundwater or surface water, it doesn't divide communities, and it actually creates more jobs. That is the sort of future that the Greens see for Western Victoria and for the rest of the nation, not dangerous unconventional gas. And it was wonderful on that trip to be able to share the experience of the Queensland communities who, in the face of this onslaught to their land and their water, really did band together and resisted as much as they possibly could against the might of this very well-heeled, very well-resourced, mostly multinational company-driven gas industry. So as best as I could, I shared the learnings that Queenslanders have sadly now had to learn about the dangers of letting the gas industry get their claws into what is our best food-producing land. And I would urge those Western Victorian communities that we visited, who are already so well organised and so strong in their opposition and so across the dangers of this unconventional gas industry, I would urge them to keep up their fight, to keep having those conversations in their communities, to keep doing those wonderful surveys where they declare themselves gas field free. We know that there's no legal implication that flows from that, but it is an incredibly powerful statement of community sentiment and community vision for those towns. And it will be a very bold government or opposition that ignores that really strong community sentiment in Western Victoria that says we don't want unconventional gas fracking here. We love our farmland, we value our clean water, we have other renewable energy alternatives. You're not welcome here. So it was a great honour to undertake that trip and to share those learnings, and I am confident that ultimately, despite the intransigence of the current government in this place and their absolute disregard for clean, green, renewable energy, I'm confident that the momentum for renewable energy is unstoppable. Not even this Abbott government can stop the broad support for renewables that the industry is experiencing and that the public know. So I'm confident that we will be able to stop this dangerous and unnecessary unconventional gas fracking industry in Australia. We have clean alternatives. We have solar, we have wind, we have tidal power, we have geothermal. We have a whole raft of options that other countries would be very envious of. That's where we should be investing. That's what will protect our farmland across the nation, including in Western Victoria. That's what those communities want. That's what the Greens are taking to the Victorian state election, and I very much look forward to allowing and giving those communities their voice on polling day, and hopefully to the election of our Western Victorian candidate, Lloyd Davies. Thanks very much, Deputy President.